Hey, this is Tyler Franklin with Tidewater Seed. I'm in Hanover County, Virginia. I'm looking at some Axis 63 M73 today. This farm was planted the first week of May behind a really good lush cover crop of hairy vetch. We seeded it at about 30,000 seed per acre. We ended up with 29,000 ears per acre, so we got a really good stand. We've had a good season, some adversities. We've had a little bit of hail damage here and some dry weather, but I really want to highlight some key characteristics with this lead product. So this is Axis 63 M73. This is a very typical ear. You can see it's got very shallow dent. It loves to put on 16 kernels round. 14 is not uncommon. If you find 18 to 20 kernels round, you've got something really special. It's a semi-determinate ear. We need to keep our populations above 30,000 seed per acre. The sweet spot, depending on your yield goal, is 30,000 to 38,000. That's where we want to keep this population. It loves 30-inch rows or narrower. On 36s, we want to keep our populations very aggressive. One key characteristic of this particular hybrid is it has imperfect pollination. Every single ear will have about half a dozen kernels that don't pollinate. This is just an aesthetic issue. It does not affect yield, but it is a key characteristic that I can find in every single ear of this particular hybrid. One key characteristic I look at when we're selecting hybrids is husk coverage, because that directly affects grain quality. This particular hybrid has adequate husk coverage, but it is a little short. You can see here it's just enough to cover the tip of the ear. However, I have never seen any grain quality issues with this hybrid, and it's because of the thick skin that it has on each kernel. So you can see there's a little bit of kernel injury at the tip, but that short husk like that really aids in dry down. So even though this is called a 113-day hybrid, it dries down like a 110 or even 111. So very fast dry down without sacrificing any top end yield and without sacrificing any kernel quality. One reason I focus on husk coverage so closely is here along the East Coast in the fall, we get a lot of tropical moisture on occasion. And if water gets down inside that husk, sometimes the kernels can rot. We can lose test weight, we can lose grain quality, and it's important to have good husk coverage and good kernel quality to maintain a high yield level. So one key component to growing high yield corn is not just creating the yield, but it's also allowing it to be harvested. And so stalk integrity and standability are key characteristics that I really pay attention to. And 63M is very, very stable. It's got great stalk integrity, excellent roots that you can see here. You can also see how thick and sturdy the stalks are. Standability on this hybrid is something that you can really put a lot of weight on, even in high yield environments and dense populations. 63M73 is a medium tall plant type with average ear placement. A lot of times I'll find hybrids that are medium tall height but have really, really high ear placement. We got to watch where that center of gravity is on hybrids. We don't want the weight of that hybrid being so tall that the center of gravity is high. So with good stalks, good ear placement, medium tall plant, we can withstand a lot of these East Coast storms that we have to deal with year after year. So one key characteristic that we really screen for is disease resistance. We deal with a lot of gray leaf spot, a lot of northern corn leaf blight, and southern rust, and some eye spot here on the East Coast year after year. This particular location has seen an above average rainfall. Disease is very present this year. We are just now reaching dent, and a lot of hybrids have been eaten up with gray leaf spot to this particular point. But you can see here that 63M holds on very strong against gray leaf spot. It's got excellent, excellent disease resistance, and a lot of times it'll be the last thing that holds on dark color late into the fall. So 63M has a very upright leaf angle. you can see here at this particular plant what I'm talking about. So we have leaves that have more of an upright leaf angle compared to some hybrids that have a very flat leaf angle. Theoretically, that affects preference on row spacing, but even on 36-inch rows and wide rows, this hybrid still performs very well. But it really stands out and shines with that upright leaf angle on narrow row spacings, and we can get our crop densities up. It also has a very dark upper canopy. It is often the darkest green hybrid in the plot all season long. And so the darker the leaf, the more sunlight we're bringing in, the more yield potential we have. And you can see that dark color that I'm talking about. So one thing we really look close at when selecting hybrids is early season seedling vigor. That's very important when we're planting into cool soils, especially no-till environments, and in springtime where we get a lot of rain into those cool soils. Everybody understands that the more even emergence we get, the more yield potential we have. So having a hybrid with really good early season seedling vigor is extremely important. At this particular location, we planted it in May. However, we had 3 feet of vetch that we put down. The soils were very cold. And right after planting, we had a 4-inch rain. And this hybrid really got off to a poor start. However, having that good early season vigor kept some of that top end yield potential on the table. So this is a hybrid that I love planting early, and I don't mind planting it into cold soils with adverse conditions due to its good early season vigor. So from North Carolina through Virginia on up to Maryland, year after year, water is our #1 limiting factor with corn production. So drought tolerance is something we take very seriously and we look closely at, specifically on those dry land acres. One thing I love about 63M73 is it's got some of the most top end yield potential I've seen, but even under severe stress, it's still in the top. And that's something that I can really put a lot of weight in no matter what season that we face as farmers. This particular spot is a very compacted, gravelly spot, and it's only 30 feet from a real high yielding spot, but it really illustrates the stress tolerance of this particular hybrid. So as we go into this field, you'll see how fired up this corn has been. 2 days ago, it was fired up all the way to the top, but you can see that we still maintained a lot of kernels. We have some ears that have more tip back than others, but on average, we still have a decent size ear here and a lot of weight to harvest per acre. It's impressive to me how a hybrid with so much top end yield potential can have such strong drought tolerance. Those two things do not usually come hand in hand, but with 63M73, you get that. So when we're discussing how well a hybrid responds to planting density, one thing we really look at is how it maintains ear size at thicker populations. This particular area, we double planted on 15-inch rows. So we're at 60,000 ears per acre here on 15-inch rows, and you can see that it still maintains that big ear, which means it really likes higher seeding rates, or it can still perform well at higher seeding rates. So the one advantage to having a determinate style ear is that we can put on a normal size ear even when the crop density is high. So this is just an example of how this hybrid performs in really dense populations. So Axis 63M73 is a hybrid that covers a very wide geography, whether you're planting on clay soils or sandy soils. It's something that I have a lot of confidence in, covering a very wide geography from north to south, east to west, and also a varying soil types. You can have a lot of confidence in it if it's under irrigation because it's got that top end yield potential, or even in a very stressed season, it's still gonna perform extremely well. So we've entered this in several state trials in the non-biased Virginia Tech and North Carolina state trials. In North Carolina OVTs last year, it was the highest yielding corn hybrid in Pamlico County, and it was the highest yielding corn hybrid over all mid-maturing hybrids in North Carolina. And that was an adverse season. And so to have that type of performance in an adverse season and still have the highest yielding product over all entries, over all locations, shows the type of power that this hybrid brings to the table. You all may be familiar with Axis 62A28. This is bringing another 8 bushels to the table and more stress tolerance compared to 64B28. This is bringing about another 5 bushels to the table and a half a point drier grain at harvest compared to Axis 63H27. It's a very consistent 4 bushel yield advantage with 63M, and it's given us a lot more drought tolerance compared to 63H. This is a hybrid that belongs on every farm operation across the Mid-Atlantic. No matter if you're planting 114 day to 118 day, or you really like early maturing hybrids. Because this pollinates like 111 day corn and dries down like 110, 111 day corn, it belongs on just about every operation across the Mid-Atlantic. And it's one that you can put in the field and feel confident in no matter what season that we're thrown.